Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. It is a Wednesday, which means it's time for another weekly Top 10 countdown. And I will get into this week's Top 10 countdown coming up here momentarily. But before I do, let me say I've got another shout out coming up at the end of the video. So please stay tuned for that. Now, if you follow the channel, you know that some of the countdowns I do are about sports and some are not. And last week's Top 10 countdown was actually about Christmas. And I almost did another Christmas themed Top 10 countdown this week. And I may do the one that I was going to do today, next week. I'm not sure yet. But I thought, since it is college football bowl season, since the bowls actually start next Friday, and we discussed college football yesterday, and we discussed college football on Monday, that I would do a top 10 countdown about bowls. Now, if you follow the channel, you know that back in, I guess sometime in October or November, I did a top 10 countdown that was the top 10 all-time best college football games. Well, this one is kind of similar to that one, except for this one is just top 10 all-time best bowl games. Now, if you want to go read the article in its entirety, I got this top 10 countdown from a website called thegruelingtruth.com. So please feel free to go back and read the entire article and read everything it says about all 10 of these bowl games. But I went with thegruelingtruth.com because I found one that came off of an ESPN article. I couldn't find the year the article was written, but the way the writing looked and the way the background looked, I would say it was at least 10 years old, and I wanted something kind of more modern day because there's a lot of bowl games that happen over a 10-year stretch. So I wanted something a little bit more modern. So I thought, since I couldn't find the year that one was written, I would find one a little more modern. And the gruelingtruth.com and SI pretty much had the same 10 bowl games, just numbered a little bit differently. So if you want to go back and read all these bowl games, you can find them at thegruelingtruth.com. Now, if you're a college football fan, then you know nowadays we have playoffs to determine the national champion. And before the playoffs, starting in 1999, we had the BCS system. But before that, all we had was bowl games, and some of the bowl games determined who was the national champion. And a lot of times, they didn't even tell you that it was for the national championship. It would just be for the national championship, especially back in the day. Back in the day, it would just be the Orange Bowl. But the winner of that game was the national champion. They just didn't tell you that. They just called it the Orange Bowl. And even before that, a long time ago, they didn't even do that. They would just have like 10 or 12 bowl games, and then after all the bowl games were played, all the writers and columnists would sit around and vote for who they thought was the national champion from watching all the bowl games. It's not like it is today where a team could go, 6-6 and go to a bowl game. You pretty much had to have a really good record to go to a bowl game. So if you played in a bowl game, then you had a really good season. So it's not like they were voting for is a 7-5 team a national champion. It wasn't like that. Everybody was really good, but they just put people in bowl games, and after everybody played, you had a national champion. So a lot of these bowl games on this countdown were actually for the national championship, even though they weren't labeled the national championship. And that's why Alabama, if you're a Alabama lover or an Alabama hater, then you know this. but Alabama claims they've won 14,000 national championships. Well, the reason is back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, a lot of years they would just go out and play in the Blue Bonnet Bowl. And then after they played, the writers would say, oh, they're national champion. Even though they just played in the Blue Bonnet Bowl, they just got voted the national champion. So luckily, we've made a lot of progress since then, but that's why Alabama claims they've won 14,000 national championships, because back in the day, most years, they were voted the national champion. Number 10 on the list was the 1979 Sugar Bowl, where Alabama beat Penn State by the score of 14-7, and I believe that game was actually for the national championship, even though it was just called the 1979 Sugar Bowl. 1994, we had the Orange Bowl, and if I'm not mistaken, this game was also for the national championship. We had two coaches who've been longtime coaches battling it out for the national championship. You had Florida State's Bobby Bowden, and you had Nebraska's Tom Osborne. In 1994 Orange Bowl, Florida State won the game by the score of 18-16. Number 8, we had the 2005 Rose Bowl, which of course was on New Year's Day, so it was the 2004 season. And I say that because I don't want people to get confused on what game this was. This was Texas beating Michigan by the score of 38-37, and that was pretty much Vince Young's breakout party heading into the 2005 season, but it was the 2004 season on New Year's Day 2005 when they beat Michigan 38-37 in the Rose Bowl. 1979, we had the Cotton Bowl, where Notre Dame beat Houston by the score of 35-34. And then in 1980, we had the Holiday Bowl, which BYU beat SMU by the score of 46-45. And a side note on that game, if you're a young person, you may not know, but back in those days, SMU was actually a powerhouse in college football. But not long after the 1980 Holiday Bowl, they got placed on a death penalty, and they've just never fully recovered. But the funny thing about those two games, the 79 Cotton Bowl and the 80 Holiday Bowl, was how high scoring they were. Now, we know this day and time, college football is all about offense. An elite offense will beat an elite defense all day long. But back in the 70s, 80s, and for the most part the 90s, most teams ran some kind of option offense, whether it was the triple option, the wing T, the T-bone, the veer option, whatever you want to call it. Pretty much almost every team ran some kind of option. So there was a lot fewer possessions back then. So to see two games where the final scores were 35-34 and 46-45 is kind of shocking. But of course, nowadays, most teams run the RPO, which is just a modern-day spread version of the option. But it's still the option. It's just ran a different style, but all it is a modern-day form of running the option from the shotgun instead of under center. Number 5 on the list, 2007 Fiesta Bowl, where Boise State beat Oklahoma by the score of 43-42. And number 4 was 1987 Fiesta Bowl, where Penn State beat Miami by the score of 14-10. And if I'm not mistaken, that game was also for the national championship. Number 3 was the Fiesta Bowl from 2003, where Ohio State beat Miami by the score of 31-24. And that game still has one of the most controversial endings in college football history. And I can recall watching that game live, and that was an amazing football game. And it still, like I said, has a very, very controversial ending that people still talk about to this day. Number 2 on the list was the game I just mentioned a few minutes ago, the 2006 Rose Bowl, where Texas beat USC by the score of 41-38. The only difference between the 2006 Rose Bowl and the 2005 Rose Bowl was that the 2006 Rose Bowl was for the national championship, and the 2005 Rose Bowl was not for the national championship. And the best bowl game of all time, according to the gruelingtruth.com, was the 1984 Orange Bowl. Well, the Hurricanes of Miami beat the Cornhuskers of Nebraska by the score of 31-30. Now, if you have seen any of these games, whether you've seen them live or on ESPN Classic or however you've watched them, if you've seen any of these games, please feel free to let me know. I always enjoy getting your feedback. And tomorrow we'll be talking about something besides college football. We'll take a break from college football for a day. My shout out today goes out to my man Ryan, who subscribed to the channel this morning. He lives in South Carolina, and Ryan is a Clemson fan and wanted me to say, go Tigers. Ryan, thank you so much for subscribing. Give the video a thumbs up. Spread the word, help the channel continue to grow. And if you do so choose to comment on any video at any time, you will be eligible for our 1,000 subscriber giveaway whenever we get to 1,000 subscribers. And if I remember, speaking of college football, sometime coming up here in the next couple of weeks, I want to have a video where we talk about the 7 years in the history of the college football playoffs. And the reason why I say that is because you think if it's the 4 best teams every year, the games will come down to the wire, and you'd be shocked at how many of the games so far in the playoffs have been one-sided. If I remember, we're going to talk about that coming up sometime here in the next couple of weeks. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Why did the orange lose the race? It ran out of juice. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them.